Hi, everybody, and good evening. I'm News 13's Amy Hoyt with 13 Now. We are live in our newsroom on Harrison Avenue, and thank you for joining us tonight. The subject this evening is the Callaway wildfire that started about 2:30 this afternoon. There were some evacuations, several fire departments on scene, but they are getting that under control tonight. We do want to bring you up to speed, especially if you live on the east side of Bay County. Chief Meteorologist Ross Whitley is going to be joining us tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about the dry conditions and if the lack of rain has anything to do or will affect this type of wildfire. But we would like to start with News 13 reporter Jenna Maddox. She is with us tonight. Jenna, you were on scene for a couple of hours. Let's start with the background of what happened and what you saw while you were out there, and then bring us up to speed where things stand now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got there around maybe 4 o'clock. That was a couple of hours after they got the initial call. And it was just smoke for miles. I saw it when I was even in Springfield driving up to it. So I knew whenever I was going to get to the fire, it was just going to be a lot bigger than imagined. So they did tell us it was 25 acres that burned. Now it is 75% contained. I just wanted to go ahead and throw that out there that they are making progress in this. But it was just unlike anything I've seen before, honestly. There were airplanes, there were helicopters with buckets that would scoop up water in a nearby pond and dump it on the fire. And I've seen it in movies and TV shows, but seeing it in person was really interesting. So they also had several tractors out there just going over the fires and over the land, trying to just diminish this fire. So there were lots of agencies out there too. I know Bay County Sheriff's Office, Springfield Fire, Callaway Fire, Florida Forest Service, and Bay County Fire Rescue. So it really was a team effort. Lots of cooperation going into this, and Florida Forest officials told me that they were proud of how everybody was kind of cooperating together, and it's making progress pretty quickly. So that's some good news.
All right, let's talk about this video that you shot. Now, the fire started around 2:30. You got out there about 4:30. What is it that we're seeing? This was from earlier this evening.
Yeah, so that's actually one of the helicopters that kept flying around. It was kind of flying around in a circle. So, coming, dropping down, picking up the water from the small pond, and then just driving, making a circle and dumping it onto the fire, and just kept doing that for maybe a couple of hours, honestly. Once it started to get dark outside, they did have to stop doing that. But they they kept it going for sure.
Now, we talked about Callaway Heights. Was it in Callaway Heights? There are homes out there, and you talked about some evacuations earlier.
So it was actually further east in Callaway. It was right off of Callaway Drive. I guess the specific road that it was off of was Chestnut Way, kind of in that area. I know for sure one house did burn down, a couple of cars burned up, but we don't have any confirmed injuries in this. They weren't entirely sure, but I know throughout the entire call, while they were trying to tackle the fire, there were evacuations in process. So, I mean, unfortunate situation, of course, but luckily I don't think they didn't say anybody was injured. So.
Right. Tell me about the Florida Forest Service. They were out there, of course. Are they in charge of getting this fire under control? Is that how it works?
So they are part of it for sure. I know that the Callaway Fire Department is going to be watching the fire overnight tonight, and Florida Forest Service officials told me that they are going to be coming back in the morning. So I know they're definitely helping out. They know more about the fire logistics of it, while the fire department is doing more of the community, trying to evacuate, letting the residents know what's going on.
All right, very good. Thanks, Jenna. We want to bring in Chief Meteorologist Ross Whitley now, who has been sitting patiently to my right and your left. Ross, let's talk about the conditions now. We haven't had rain in a while.
Right.
Is that going to make this worse?
Yeah, well, for fires, you need really three conditions that are looking at for favorable fire growth, and that's dry conditions. We obviously have a check mark there. We've had very dry conditions over the last couple of weeks, and certainly haven't seen any rain for about 2.5 weeks now. So the fuels sitting on the ground are, in fact, dry. We're also in a bit of a drought. We're not quite in a drought classification now. They'll update this map that you're seeing on your screen tomorrow. That's when we'll see it updated. And I would believe that they'll probably put us in D1, which is drought designation, that brown color that you see over there by Pensacola, just because it hasn't rained since last Thursday when they put us in the abnormally dry situation. So I think that we will see that increase, and we'll probably see us designated as drought starting tomorrow. And then the second things is going to be wind and humidity, just how humid we're talking the air is. Today, our dew points were nice and low, and it was dry out there. Our temperatures, not terribly warm. We were getting up into the 70s. That does play a factor. If the dew points are really low and our temperatures are really warm, then that's what we see. We talk about dew point depression. So just the difference between how high the temperature is versus how low the dew point is. And the greater that number, the greater your dew point depression is, the bigger growth you have for potential wildfire spreading. And today we had a decent dew point depression because our temperatures got up into the 70s. Our dew points were in the upper 30s and even 40s for most of the day. So about the time that this fire started, we had a decent situation for fire growth, which is why we saw it spread pretty quickly. But at the same time, we don't have a whole lot of wind. So today, unlike last year, or I guess it was 2 years ago,
Right.
2020, when we had the Santa Rosa fire. That was actually what we referred to as a red flag warning day or a fire warning day because we had red flag warnings because it was not only dry and it had been dry, but we also had winds 15 to 30 miles per hour that day. So that exasperates any kind of fire spread and makes fire control really, really difficult because fires become erratic. Now, fires can create their own wind if it's super dry, but in this case, we're seeing our temperatures come down, our dew points come up, and we're not talking about a whole lot of potential there for wildfire spreading.
But you think the winds are diminishing tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I've got the current
Yeah.
wind speeds up right now.
Low or nothing?
Yeah, so there's little to no wind.
That's helpful.
I would expect, I'm not a fire expert by any means. We're just talking weather conditions and what fire growth does. But I would expect that they'll probably have this completely contained by the morning, would be my guess. I mean, I would guess that they're going to let what has burned just completely burn out, and they'll probably control the rest on the outside
Well,
of that.
75% contains pretty good.
Yeah,
For a few hours.
once they get up
Yeah.
to 70%, you'll hear them say like, "We're confident that we can control this." 70% containment is really saying that they have the whole perimeter in control, and they're leaving that little there, that little bit there for hot spots and stuff that's by chance.
Right.
But by the time you get 70 to 90%, in reality, they're in control of that fire. So I would expect by morning they'll come out and say
All
it's
right.
100% contained, or they have it extinguished, whatever. But I'm betting they're going to let what has caught on fire burn. There's a lot of fuels out there, so
Right. Now, we had talked earlier about how Hurricane Michael could or could not play a role in this. I think the gentleman Jenna interviewed from the Florida Forest Service, Mike, had said there are trees down and debris from Hurricane Michael over 3 years ago, but that's keeping the ground moist.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, so I mean, the rain that we have had, I'm sure. Speaking of which, to Callaway, a lot of Callaway area is relatively flat, and actually, if you look at a topography map of Bay County itself, actually slopes down toward Callaway. Callaway's in a low spot, so probably one of the last areas to actually dry out completely after a good rain. So what is on the ground is going to hold moisture, and even when we don't have rain for an extended period of time, when we have such high dew points here, that's the moisture that's in the air, that those materials will pull water out of the air. Wood is really good at pulling water out of the air, so we don't typically get too concerned about fire danger here, with exception to after cold fronts or on days like today when it's really, really dry and has been dry. Dry, I mean, we had low dew points. Our dew points were down in the 30s today. So that's when we say, well, okay, things can start to burn and do things like that. Because typically our dew points are in the 60s and 70s,
Right.
even as we get into the spring. And by Friday, we're going to have our dew points return back to the 60s. So all that lovely dry air we've been feeling the last couple of days, it'll be gone by Friday. It'll be humid again.
Now, I know we don't know what caused this yet. They're still investigating that. But this is probably a good time to remind folks about not throwing cigarettes out the window, not burning trash. Maybe be careful. Make sure you have the hose. Any other suggestions for what to be careful with or not to do until it really rains again?
Yeah, I mean, people like to throw their cigarettes out the window, that kind of thing. Not only being a little environmentalist here, that's littering. Cigarettes actually take forever to break down. So when you flick a cigarette out the window, it stays on the ground.
And I think people
for
don't think
hundreds of years. People don't. Yeah, it takes forever for those things to break
interesting,
down.
considering because you think that tobacco would be a natural.
Yeah, but it's not all tobacco in there. There's more to a cigarette than just tobacco.
But I think people think something that small couldn't start a fire, but it can.
Right. Well, I mean, it's on fire. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what you're
Well,
doing. If
I
you're
know.
smoking something that's on fire. So it certainly can, especially if it goes into dry grass or things like that. And if you're going out the car, I mean, you don't know where that thing's going to land. So be careful and mindful of that. A, don't litter. B, be mindful of where you are littering, if you are littering. And then the second thing is don't park your car over tall, dry grass. I mean, catalytic converters will start a fire really, really easily. And that's one of the things. And then chains dragging the ground behind on the road. Sparks can also start a fire too. That's something that can easily happen, and you may not even know you caused the fire. And then you see it later on, and it was because you were dragging something behind your car, and it caused the fire. So when it's dry like this, it's just smart to double check
careful.
things like that and be careful.
Right,
yeah.
of course, and keep the hose nearby if you're out doing anything. Even grilling, barbecue grills have been known to start fires too. So we got to be careful with that. But are you saying we're formally going to go into a drought, or when would that occur at this point?
They'll update the drought monitor tomorrow,
Okay.
and I bet that they will put us in that drought designation tomorrow because we're about 3 to 4 inches behind on the year so far. Now, last year we ended up being so high above the normal rainfall. We're certainly not in a drought on the aquifer side of things, but our topsoil and our materials, stuff that is on the surface, is starting to dry out because we haven't had the rain. So we do need rain to come back. Good news is looking long range in the forecast. It looks like we've got a couple of chances next week
Oh,
where
good.
rain will come back.
Just
so
in time for spring.
that will certainly help out the fire danger.
All right, Ross, thanks so much. And I think that's going to do it for us for now. Anybody else that we've forgotten?
Like you said, there is no known cause of the fire quite yet, but we will, if we receive any updates, we will keep our website, mypanhandle.com updated.
Of course, and our social media. You can always follow us there as well. Thanks, Jenna. And don't forget, News 13 at 10. We'll be back tonight, not too far away. What time is it? 8:15? So less than 2 hours. So we invite you to join us there as well for the very latest and other news of the day. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.